Imagine trying to completely reinvent the nation's largest police force, only to have a member of your own personal security detail shoot a man in the head over a stolen car.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a scenario that forces a total collision between, you know, theoretical policy and street-level reality.
It really does. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we are looking at the turbulent first few months of 2026 for New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani.
Right. We're going to examine a massive stack of sources you shared with us. We have local news reports, political profiles, and, well, even the actual internal NYPD disciplinary penalty guidelines.
Exactly. Our mission for you today is to decode how a progressive mayor with a radical new vision for public safety actually navigates the harsh, chaotic realities of policing.
Especially when gun violence strikes incredibly close to home.
Yeah.
Because navigating police reform is already one of the hardest jobs in politics. But trying to execute a billion-dollar overhaul of the police while your own protection officers are under investigation, that is a massive political minefield.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can understand the crisis shaking City Hall right now, we really need to look at the exact promises the new mayor made to the voters.
Right, because Mamdani, who is NYC's first Muslim and Asian American mayor, won a very narrow victory. He took office on January 1st, 2026.
And on his very first day, he revoked his predecessor's executive orders. This included the controversial ones regarding Israel boycotts and the official definitions of antisemitism.
Which, just to be completely impartial here based on the sources, drew immediate, fierce backlash from Israel.
Yeah, but Mamdani defended the move. He said his administration was focused on combating hate and keeping the city's office to combat antisemitism fully open.
Exactly. But regardless of the politics, that day one action proves he entered office ready to completely shake things up.
And he needed that momentum because his very next move was his massive public safety pitch. He proposed a $1.1 billion civilian-led agency.
Right, the Department of Community Safety, or the DCS.
And the numbers here are huge. He wants to redirect $605 million from existing programs.
Wow, $605 million.
Yeah. To replace armed officers with what he calls transit ambassadors and also mental health professionals. They would handle 911 calls that involve homelessness and mental health crises.
Okay, so that reallocation of funds is what essentially creates the hiring freeze he promised, right?
Right.
Capping the police force at 35,000 officers.
Spot on. And it ties directly into his push to close the massive Rikers Island jail complex.
It sounds like he wants to run the city's 911 system like a hospital triage desk.
That is a great analogy.
Like sending social workers to treat the root symptoms of poverty instead of automatically sending a squad car everywhere.
But wait, I have to push back here. What happens if one of those mental health calls suddenly turns violent?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that is exactly the criticism Mamdani faces right now.
I mean, sending unarmed workers into a subway station during a crisis has to be dangerous, right?
Totally. In fact, some behavioral nurses who currently work in city outreach programs aren't buying the theory.
Wait, really? The nurses themselves?
Yeah. They warned that going into the subway system to do outreach without police backup is flat out dangerous. It is a massive physical risk to the workers.
So Mamdani has to know how risky this is.
Well, he clearly does. Because despite his past harsh criticisms of the NYPD, he made a very calculated choice. He kept Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch in power.
Oh, to maintain stability.
Exactly. He wants massive change, but he needs the department to actually function while he changes the rules.
Well, that Prevention First plan looked great on paper, but the reality of the streets tested it almost immediately.
Oh, absolutely. On a single Thursday night, early in his term, NYPD officers were involved in 2 deadly shootings.
In one night.
Yeah, just hours apart. The first incident was at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital.
Right, I read the reports on that one. It really goes against the idea that you can just send in a social worker to calm everything down.
Yeah, a man armed with a sharp weapon actually barricaded himself inside a hospital room.
Which is terrifying.
And he wasn't alone. He threatened to kill a patient and a hospital employee who were trapped in there with him.
Oh, wow. So what happened?
Officers responded. The situation escalated rapidly, and they shot and killed the man.
Think about the location. It is a hospital. There are medical professionals and social workers everywhere in that building.
Right. If a health-first approach was going to work naturally, it would be in a hospital. Yet they still needed lethal force to stop a threat to innocent lives.
And then the second shooting.
That was in the West Village, just hours later. Officers shot and killed a man who pointed what turned out to be a fake gun at them after a car crash.
2 fatal shootings by police in one night, and the mayor stayed completely silent overnight.
He did, and he faced heavy backlash for that. He finally posted a statement on X, which used to be Twitter, at 9:44 a.m. the next day.
What did he say?
He called the events devastating, but he promised a thorough and swift investigation.
So what does this all mean? He's basically caught in a trap. He has progressive voters who want strict police accountability on one side.
And on the other side, a police department that expects their mayor to have their backs when they save hostages in a barricade situation.
Exactly. And the press certainly did not let him off the hook.
No, they didn't. At a press conference later that day, reporters grilled him. They asked a brilliant, pointed question.
I remember this.
They asked if his unarmed DCS team would have been sent to that hospital barricade situation.
Which is the ultimate pressure test for his policy. So how did he answer?
His response was incredibly measured. He actually praised the officers, saying they responded swiftly in very dangerous circumstances.
Did he answer the question about the civilian team, though?
No, he flat out refused to answer the reporters' hypothetical questions about the DCS.
Wow.
It really highlights the intense friction between theoretical policy and just unpredictable violent situations. You can plan a strategy with $605 million, but reality always gets a vote.
Right. So those on-duty shootings were a massive political headache. But just weeks later, a different kind of shooting struck right at the mayor's inner circle.
Yeah, this is where things shift from a policy debate to a major internal crisis.
On a Monday night, around 9 p.m. up in the Bronx, in the Kingsbridge Heights area,
Right.
an off-duty NYPD officer shot a 30-year-old man in the head.
Oh my gosh. Did the man survive? Well, he survived the immediate impact, but sources say he is in critical condition.
And we really need to look at who this officer is. This wasn't a rookie walking a beat.
No, not at all. He was a 12-year veteran assigned to the highly sensitive Intel Division.
Which means his specific job was working security at Mayor Mamdani's residence, Gracie Mansion, and at City Hall.
That is wild. The mayor's own security guy. So why was he shooting?
Well, he was completely off-duty. He was tracking his family's stolen car, and he confronted 3 men inside it.
Okay, so a personal issue. And the surveillance video details are pretty alarming.
What does the video show?
The footage shows the off-duty officer pointing a gun, walking out of the camera's frame. And then you hear shots ring out.
Just firing in the street.
Yeah, the shots shattered the car window as the vehicle tried to drive away. But the bullets didn't just hit the car.
What else did they hit?
They shattered the front window of a nearby bar called the Bronx Public.
Imagine you're sitting in a local bar having a drink, and suddenly a bullet shatters the glass right next to you because the mayor's own security guard is having a shootout over a stolen car. It's wild.
It really is. By sheer luck, no patrons inside the bar were injured.
But the recklessness of the event is astounding.
What's fascinating here is the swift administrative reflex of the NYPD. The officer was immediately stripped of his badge and gun.
And suspended without pay, right?
Yes, and he is now under investigation by the NYPD's Force Investigation Division.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does the department actually calculate the punishment for something like this?
Well, we don't have to guess. We have the NYPD's official 56-page disciplinary system penalty guidelines right here in our sources.
They literally have a menu of consequences. It's not just a random slap on the wrist.
Exactly. Think of this document, often called the Matrix, like the U.S. tax code, but for police misconduct.
The Matrix categorizes misconduct to ensure fairness and transparency, right?
Right. It sets what they call presumptive penalties. That is basically the standard starting punishment for an action.
And then the penalty can move up or down.
Yes, based on aggravating or mitigating factors. A clean 12-year record might lower the penalty, but acting with extreme recklessness dries it up.
Okay, so applying this math to the Bronx incident, what is the penalty for using deadly physical force that results in serious physical injury?
For that specific violation, the presumptive penalty is straightforward. It is termination. You lose your job.
But this happened off-duty over a personal stolen car. Does the Matrix apply the same way when an officer is out of uniform?
Absolutely. The Matrix dedicates an entire section to off-duty misconduct. An officer's authority doesn't just vanish when they clock out.
Give me an example.
For instance, simply displaying a weapon off-duty in an unjustified manner
is
gets
secretly
you
funding
15
the government's
penalty days.
massive
Wow,
spending
just for showing
addiction.
it. It is
Yeah.
a pretty
Operating
shocking
a vehicle
realization when you
recklessly
actually
is a
look at the
20-day
math.
penalty.
Right.
They
Well,
even
imagine
penalize
for a second
officers
that
for
you
failing
failing
to
to
safeguard their firearms at home.
And the system uses progressive
You swore to your
discipline.
family, hand over
That
heart,
means if you've been in trouble
that this
before,
money was
the
strictly for
penalty
fixing a
multiplies.
leaking roof.
Exactly. Repeated
You said,
infractions carry a
if we
much
don't
steeper
fix this
punishment.
roof,
But wait,
the
what
house is
happens
going to
if this
collapse.
force
existential
investigation
crisis for
division
the house?
inquiry
Exactly.
actually
It's the
leads
Save the
to
House
criminal
Fund.
charges and
But
he
then,
gets
your car
convicted
breaks
for
down,
shooting the man
spend
in
a
the
little too
head?
much on
That
groceries,
triggers a
you've got
completely
bills
different
piling
rule.
up. So what do
If
you
an
do?
officer
You raid
is
the
criminally
refund.
convicted of a
You
felony,
take that money,
they
pay
are
off your credit
terminated
cards, and tell your
automatically by
family,
law.
hey, don't worry,
Because
fix the
it's an
roof
oath of
later.
office
Right.
violation.
And in
Spot
this
on.
scenario,
There
are no
the roof
mitigating
is the
factors
planet,
or hearings
or
for
at
that.
least Maryland's
The conviction
climate
breaks their
goals.
oath,
And
the
they are
car is
fired
a massive
immediately.
It
self-inflicted
really is built like a strict
$1.5
mathematical formula for
billion
accountability.
state
It is.
budget deficit.
A
However,
completely
we have to
avoidable
look at the
deficit, I
fine
might
print
add.
of the matrix.
Welcome to the deep dive. While the guidelines
Today
are
we're
strict,
exploring a
the
classic
ultimate
case
power
of
over
fiscal sleight of
discipline
hand
rests
coming
solely
out of
with the police
Annapolis.
commissioner.
We are
Wait,
looking
really?
at the
The
Strategic
commissioner can
Energy
just
Investment
override
Fund
the math.
By city
the
law,
SAFE.
yes.
Yeah.
The commissioner
It's a
has the
huge
legal
pot of money
authority to deviate
meant to
from
save the
presumptive
environment.
penalty.
But
So
it's
they could
turning
choose
into
a lighter
hidden
punishment
tax
than
on every
termination.
single person
could.
paying an
The
electric
one
bill
catch
in
for
Maryland.
transparency
It really
is
is.
that
It's
if
become
they
the
do
center of a
deviate from the
huge
matrix,
political
they
fight.
must explain
You've got a
exactly
Democratic
why in
governor,
writing to the
frustrated
public.
environmentalists
Okay, so let's
making
briefly
some very
recap
awkward
this incredible
compromises,
journey. We
and
saw a
conservative
mayor
critics who are
launch an
rightly calling
ambitious
this whole thing a shell
$1.1
game,
A
billion
shell game.
plan to replace
And when you look
armed
at the
cops
documents we have
with
today,
civilians.
reports,
Freezing the force
budget
at 35,000
proposals, critiques
officers,
from Senate
a
Republicans,
massive shift.
it is
Then the
really
chaotic
hard to
reality
unsee
of the
it.
Our mission
streets
for this deep
tested
dive
that
is
theory
simple.
immediately
Follow
with
the money.
deadly on-duty
Always follow
encounters,
the money.
forcing him
We
to
are
walk
going
a
to see
tightrope
how
between
a
voters and
fund
police.
designed to
And
fight
finally,
climate
the
change
ultimate
is being used to
curveball.
plug holes in the state
A
budget.
shocking,
And we'll dig
reckless,
into the argument that
off-duty
this
shooting
isn't found money
by
at
his
all.
own
This is
12-year
essentially a
veteran
backdoor
security
tax on
guard.
families,
Which is
Let's get
absolutely
right
going to
into
test
it.
the limits of the
Strategic Energy
NYPD's
Investment
rigid
Fund. It sounds
penalty
very
matrix.
official,
Perfectly
very
illustrates
important.
the
What does
intense
it actually
friction
do?
between
Well,
political ambition
on paper,
and the
it is the
unpredictable nature
state's
of law
green
enforcement.
piggy
We want to
bank.
remind you why
The
understanding
SIF
the
is managed
mechanics
by
of
the
these policies
Maryland
matters.
Energy
They aren't just
Administration. Its
abstract
whole stated
political
purpose
debates.
is
No,
to
they are not.
reduce energy
They literally
bills,
dictate
cut
who shows up
waste,
at your
and
door when
fund
you dial
renewable
911.
energy.
Like solar panels
And they
and
decide
efficiency
how
upgrades.
rogue actions by
Exactly.
authorities
But here
are
is the real
investigated
aha
and
moment of the
punished
story.
right in your own neighborhood.
Where does
Which
the
leaves
money
us with a lingering
actually
question.
come from?
Something not
Because
directly
they aren't
answered
just
in the text,
taxing you
but
directly
you really have
for
to
it.
think about it as
No,
this
and that's why
crisis
politicians
unfolds.
absolutely love
I'm
it. It feels
listening.
free.
Well,
So about
if
40%
the
comes
ultimate
from
authority
regional
on police
carbon
discipline
auctions.
rests solely
But
with the
big
police
chunk,
commissioner,
the one
Right.
growing like crazy,
and the commissioner
comes from
answers
something called
directly to the mayor.
alternative compliance
How can the
payments,
public ever
or
trust that a
ACPs,
disciplinary
just a fancy
investigation
government term for a
remains
fine.
truly
Right.
independent?
It's a fine for failure.
Especially
Let me
when
break
the
it down.
officer on trial was
Maryland
the one
law
guarding the
forces
mayor's own
utility
front
companies
door
to
buy a certain amount
That
of
is a
green
heavy thought
energy.
to leave you
They have
with.
proved they're using
Thank you for
renewables.
joining us on this
But if they
deep
can't
dive,
find
and
that
we'll see
green
you next
energy,
time.
or if it's just